Up next this morning on U.S. Bank Business Watch, presented by the Cincinnati Business Courier, meet the new man in charge who's mixing bedside manner and the bottom line at UC Health. A former Bengal is now using his muscle for a major downtown renovation project. And it's the season for placing bets. We've got you covered on all angles this morning. U.S. Bank Business Watch is next. Good morning. Welcome to U.S. Bank Business Watch. I'm Brian Patrick. On the front page of the Courier, the centerpiece this week, the doctor is in. The new CEO of UC Health isn't just an administrator. He is also a medical doctor who is keeping one eye on medical charts and the other on the bottom line.
I do think that there are some advantages by being a physician and understanding firsthand the implications of any decisions.
Rick Lofgren is overseeing a health system with 10,000 employees and a $1.2 billion budget. In an extensive interview with the Business Courier, Lofgren said the way services are organized impact the quality and efficiency of care. He also said the combination of an academic medical center and the research it brings can be an incredible catalyst.
I think working with the University of Cincinnati at large, as well as the kind of research we're doing here, I think will really allow us to become a great incubator for new startup companies in the biotech area.
For the full interview, including Dr. Lofgren's thoughts on the Affordable Care Act, be sure to get a copy of our print edition of the Cincinnati Business Courier. Interior renovations are underway now at Jewish Hospital in Kenwood. That's part of an $80 million expansion by parent company Mercy Health. A new entrance is planned, and the project includes adding a 6-story patient tower. That tower will face Galbraith Road. About 32,000 square feet of the hospital's existing interior will be renovated. Part of that will involve filling in the atrium of the hospital, which will become more floor space. The project is to be completed in late 2015. And former Cincinnati Bengals safety Chinedum Ndukwe has a new real estate development and investment firm that is partnering to redevelop downtown Cincinnati's Tower Place Mall. Ndukwe started Kingsley Wells Enterprises last year. This will be his first major project. Ndukwe is working with JDL Warm Construction to convert the building to Mabley Place, a $9 million project that will include 775 parking spaces accessible from both 4th and Race Streets, as well as about 8,400 square feet of commercial space. JDL Warm has a stake in other nearby properties, and Jake Warm will oversee and manage the renovation.
Coming into this opportunity, it seemed like a natural fit with them. Jake and his family being the owners of the Hilton and the Courier Tower. They have vested interest in seeing this to be a successful project, not only for the Courier and the Hilton, but also for the other projects that are happening right here locally in downtown Cincinnati.
Yeah, Ndukwe has a new helmet there. It's blue. He played 4 seasons with the Bengals wearing the striped helmet. He met Warm through former Cincinnati Economic Development Director Otis Jones. While playing for the Bengals, Ndukwe reached out to community leaders because he said he wanted to be involved in development in the city. The Pride in Over the Rhine's continued revitalization extends to state government in Columbus. State development officials were in town last week for a tour of properties aided by state preservation tax credits. It included the shell of what was once known as Cosmopolitan Hall, Germania Hall, or the nightclub named The Warehouse at 1311 Vine Street. The building will cost $15 million to rehab and will eventually house Centrifuge, the Brandery, and Cincy Tech. A state official said the business of renovation is a good investment.
Developers are business people. They want to find an easy way to make some money. So we provide incentives to make the difference worthwhile for them to come in and upgrade what could also sometimes be much more complicated development projects.
The Cincinnati Center City Development Corporation, 3CDC, has been the catalyst for receiving the support from the state. Well, Duke Energy cut a $400,000 check to the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority last week for that agency to use it as it redevelops land in Bond Hill, Roselawn, and Queensgate. That announcement was made at the site of TechSolve 2, a planned light industrial park at the former Seymour Plaza in Roselawn, near that neighborhood's border with Bond Hill.
The money from Duke is an important part of our capital structure because it's non-restricted. So we'll be able to use it incrementally on projects that we don't have funding for.
I see it as a blank canvas today. So it's an area that is ripe for continued growth and development. We would look forward to new businesses looking for opportunities to expand their operations or to site new infrastructure here and to continue to put down roots in Cincinnati.
The port hopes the new development will provide jobs for neighborhood residents who will also be able to shop and live in the redeveloped Swifton Commons in Bond Hill, which will now be known as Midpoint Crossing. Well, Glenn Guillermo pleaded guilty last week to 2 counts involving his operation of an elaborate Ponzi scheme. This scheme totaled more than $100 million. The judge said the maximum sentence on each count is 20 years, but the plea agreement calls for a shorter sentence, likely ranging from 8 to 15.5 years. Guillermo is free on bond until the sentencing hearing in May. His attorney apologized for his client.
On behalf of Mr. Guillermo, he says, I'm sorry. I done wrong, and I'm going to try and do what I can to make it right.
In addition to a likely prison sentence, Guillermo agreed to forfeit about $3 million in assets, including his Madison Road home and Walnut Hills office. Investigators say this building was stocked with large computer monitors tracking investment accounts that did not exist. Belterra Casino in Switzerland County, Indiana, which operates the 2nd largest hotel in the tri-state, is wagering that a new restaurant, sports bar, and some other renovations will pay off in the form of more customers. 19 Steak and Seafood is expected to open in February, replacing Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse, which closed earlier this month. The new restaurant is named for its home state of Indiana, the 19th state to join the union. The Riverboat Casino also features 38,000 square feet of gambling.
Well, our penny slots are by far the most popular game. But if you want the best chances of winning, you want to play table games, craps, or blackjack.
Sue Ascani started her career as a food and beverage service supervisor on the Las Vegas Strip. Miami Valley Gaming is set to start live harness racing in the old Lebanon Raceway in about 3 weeks, except for one holdup. It still doesn't have a racing license. The $175 million Lebanon Racino opened its casino last month. The racetrack portion is still awaiting approval from the Ohio State Racing Commission. There are a few hurdles to clear, including whether Miami Valley will have actual clerks to take bets. Racing is supposed to begin February 7th, and the Racing Commission has a hearing set for January 23rd to try to resolve some of those outstanding issues. We will keep you posted. Speaking of gambling this morning, 'tis the season with the Super Bowl just weeks away, college basketball now in full swing. Bets are you or someone you know is thinking about making a wager. A local man has developed a computer program that may improve your odds. Paul Basier launched PredictionMachine.com 4 years ago. He teaches a class at UC and makes sports predictions on about 40 radio stations around the country every week. His Predictilator has built a solid track record of projecting sports winners, and his service now has about 10,000 subscribers. Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins interviewed Paul Basier last year. We thought this was a good time to invite both of them to give us some inside scoop on how this program works. Steve and Paul?
Thanks, Brian, and thanks for being here, Paul.
No problem.
You guys make a ton of predictions throughout the year. How do you do it? What goes into making
Well, we use the technology that he just referred to called the Predictilator that plays on a play-by-play basis every single game, simulating the interactions of all the players on the field or any of the games that we play, and also layering in coaching staff's home field advantage, weather, officiating, anything that we can get our hands on in the numbers plays a role in these games to assess just the outcome of any possible outcome occurring, not just who will win, but how often, what teams and players will do in projected box scores, and how likely, even as of right now or before the season, any team is to win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we've been pretty successful in these predictions that we've done, especially this time of year in the NFL specifically, where we have a full season's worth of data and motivations at its highest.
Great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot that goes into it, obviously. Now, later today, we've got a couple of games, including the first one on Channel 12 here later. Now, you and I are from Wisconsin. Our team is out. The Bengals are out, but there's still a lot of interest. So the Patriots go to Denver. Brady and Manning is a big story there. How does the predictolator see that one?
I think the public views it as a very classic matchup and potentially a close game and a shootout, but we see it actually as a decisive victory for the home team. Denver wins by an average score of 31-23 in our numbers, and 68% of the time, not just on the strength of one of the best passing offenses of all time, but also one of the better run defenses in the league, and I think will be able to keep that Patriots run attack in check.
Great. And the other game, quickly, San Francisco and Seattle, how do you see that one?
Yeah, a little closer. 24-19 is our predicted score. They're two very similar teams in terms of their overall strengths and weaknesses, but Seattle wins basically because they have the best home field advantage in the NFL.
Okay, that makes sense, too. And then what about college basketball is a huge thing here. UC and Xavier both are hot. How do you see that the rest of the season playing out for them?
Quickly, we've got Xavier winning on Monday, tomorrow, at 75-68 over DePaul, and overall finishing the year at 22-9, third in the Big East, and likely then in that position being 28th in our power rankings right now, finishing around a 7 or 8 seed. For Cincinnati, they're even in a better position right now because we have them winning the AAC. 25-6 is their final projected record. We've got them as the 18th best team in the country, but if they win both the regular season and the postseason, I think that could be a 3 seed for Cincinnati.
Sounds great. Well, thanks. There you have it. Now we'll see how things pan out. So back to you, Brian.
All right, those predictions are strictly the opinion of our guest, Paul, and I think Steve agrees, and I'll probably make my bets, but they're not necessarily the view and opinion of U.S. Bank Business Watch. Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, we'll tell you who's leading a task force to save some of Cincinnati's most precious buildings. And for the first time since the 1950s, Grader's announces some new products. Just don't eliminate those chocolate chips or chunks. Here's some news you might have missed if you're not reading the Business Courier online every day or following us on Twitter and Facebook. Former Procter & Gamble CEO Bob McDonald will lead an independent review of 2 endangered Cincinnati landmarks, Union Terminal and Music Hall. The Greater Cincinnati Foundation and the Hale U.S. Bank Foundation have joined to create an independent community task force to study these beautiful old facilities. The task force is charged with identifying and creating a plan to preserve these Cincinnati landmarks. For the first time since it added chocolate chips, I like to call them chunks, in the 1950s, Grader's is expanding its product line. The company announced it will begin making gelato in 4 flavors. It uses the same process as the French pot ice cream, but with ice cream, or with cream instead of milk. Grader's is also launching a reduced sugar ice cream called A Little Less Indulgent. Are you feeling less than happy about your job? Cincinnati's workforce is the least content in the United States, according to a survey by CareerBliss.com. That survey, which you can find in Forbes magazine and on our website, is based on an analysis of more than 20,000 employee reviews from 2013, focusing on things like relationship with the boss and coworkers, work environment, job resources, and compensation. Cincinnati workers aren't the only ones down in the dumps in Ohio. Columbus ranked the 7th least happy city to work in. Well, not all of us are unhappy with our work. Jim Russell, you, of course, you and I just love what we do, right?
You know what, I got to tell you, in all honesty, working with U.S. Bank, the people at U.S. Bank, working with the customers is really great stuff. I get out of bed every morning. It's really a great day ahead. Great stuff. Steve Mullen, Mike Prescott run a great show locally.
And, of course, you love working with us on U.S. Bank Business Watch as we do with you.
I understand.
Jim, of course, is a senior equity strategist, and this week we're looking in our Economic 360 at the 4th quarter earnings reports. A lot of companies looking at numbers now. What are we likely to see in those numbers?
You know, Brian, this is a really important earnings season. But not only does it tell us about the period behind, fourth quarter 2013, but it also previews what is likely to happen in 2014. And there's some really telling data that we're looking at. First of all, the data would indicate that we're going to see earnings that are likely to be up 8% year over year. That's a pretty good number, and you can see that from the chart there, it is an all-time high. There's some things in 2014 that are very likely to change. Europe is likely to be a positive, not a negative, and of course it's been a negative for really this last several years. Secondly, the government shutdown is unlikely to rear its ugly head. And third, bad weather is also unlikely to hit. So we're likely to see many of these things hit on a positive note, and we're likely to see a much stronger 2014.
But earning growth is a key driver of the markets. So, what are your expectations? Are they high or low, and how do you think the markets would react?
Well, earnings expectations by investors are really pretty low for the fourth quarter, and the reasons I just gave: bad weather, government shutdown, fewer holiday shopping.
Looks like an EKG, doesn't it?
Yes, it would make some fall out of bed a little bit. But what this is a chart of is the negative pre-announcement ratio, meaning that the higher this line goes, and you can see it's about as high as it has been in recent years, the more negative or the more cautious investors are about the fourth quarter earnings. So the story goes that if earnings expectations are very low, it's very easy for companies to exceed or beat those expectations. Usually as that happens, the markets tend to trend up a bit more.
So what areas of the economy are anticipated to be weak and which ones strong?
Well, we really see a shift beginning in the fourth quarter 2013 and carrying on into 2014 in that shift. What has really worked up until now are the interest-sensitive sectors of the economy: housing and autos. But what we're going to start to see is a broadening of that strength. We're going to see the financial area part of that recovery in the fourth quarter, also telecom. Now, importantly with the financials is mainly the insurance companies. The insurance companies reported really soft earnings last year because of Hurricane Sandy. Now, there's a couple of other things that I think are worth noting in terms of the weak sectors, and those would be energy and telecom. What we're seeing there is really energy and utilities, seeing really the influence of energy price swings in both of those sectors, and probably likely to see negative earnings growth in each of those two.
All right, Jim, we'll keep an eye on those with you. We appreciate you and U.S. Bank.
Thank you, sir.
Still to come on U.S. Bank Business Watch this morning, a local icon helps us get our lives and businesses organized. Great to have you with us this morning, and in our Business Insights, some advice from a self-made local icon. Amy Tobin is the creative and culinary director for the Event Center at the new Riff Distillery in Northern Kentucky. She hosts the weekly radio show Amy's Table, A Guide to Living. Amy is a self-taught expert guided by decades of experience and has established herself as a food and lifestyle consultant, media personality, and corporate spokesperson. So, how do people like Amy get to a point where they can run their own successful business? Well, Amy is in studio with Business Watch producer Kelly Leon, another successful person, to give us some insight into how to keep life and business organized and successful. Amy and Kelly?
Brian, thank you. Amy, I'm so honored to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. This is just great.
So, a quote is kind of what got you on this path in terms of thinking about how you do things. Tell me about the quote.
One of my favorite quotes in terms of your life vision and how you spend your time is a food quote, and it's actually, tell me what you eat, and I'll tell you who you are. And in this case, I'm not really talking about what you're having for lunch, but it's how do you spend your time? That's who you really are, who you're with, what you do, what you're reading, where you're working. That's who you really are.
Oh, there's your quote. I don't know how well we can read it there, but life is a pie. So take it to the next step then, because you have a real system. This is not, our point with having you on is it's the new year. A lot of people are talking about, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to get my business life organized. But you have a method for doing this? This is not just by chance.
No, it's not by chance. I was lucky enough to speak to the author Keith Ferrazzi, and he wrote a book called Who's Got Your Back, which is a great book about work relationships. And Keith has what he calls his success wheel, which is the pie that I'm referring to.
Oh yeah, here it is.
And
yeah.
it's sort of the things that are important to you broken out in your life vision. So it might be professional skills, it might be giving back to your community, physical health. What's important to you? How do you want to look at your year ahead? Now, the pie in this case is in equal pieces, but in your life it might be that in this particular year it's very important to you to learn some new professional skills to advance your career, or maybe you really want to give back to your community. Well, I took Keith's color wheel and I sort of transferred it to my Google Calendar, which you said to me, can you send your Google Calendar? I thought no one can see it, they'll think I'm a crazy woman. But it really, I gave these colors to, for example, one of the things I wanted to do was leash my time for meetings. I found that I was in meetings all the time.
Yeah.
So my meetings are yellow. And I told myself in my life vision that I would do meetings on Mondays and Thursdays and really, you know, leave the rest of my time free to actually do my work. Well, a glance at my Google Calendar, it was like a field of sunflowers. I had meetings all over the place. And you realize, tell me what you eat, I'll tell you who you are. I was not a person in control of my schedule.
Yeah.
And so you can do this with, am I spending the time working on these career growth patterns? Perhaps that's purple on your calendar. And if you glance at your month and there's no purple, you're not walking the walk that you're talking.
So how long did it take you to adapt this? Because I think a lot of people hearing this might think, oh, color-coded, how do I get there?
Okay, that's a really good point. First of all, get a Google Calendar if you don't have it. Best thing ever, free, easy to do. And then, you know what I think? The biggest goals, you want to go there with the smallest steps. What is one area of your professional or personal life that you want to work on? And perhaps it's fitness. In my case, fitness is lime green. There's not nearly enough of it on my calendar. But, you know, assign that and start to hold yourself accountable. I see no fitness on my daily activities. And so get it in there.
And what have been the results that you've seen? Have you really seen year to year that, hey, I'm doing this
Kelly,
more?
You know what? It's at the risk of sounding like an evangelist, it is miraculous when you really take the time to create a vision for your life, to identify the areas that are important, and hold yourself accountable for spending your time in those areas. It is astonishing how you can really align your life to the vision that you have for it, and your calendar really helps.
Well, that's great advice. So get a Google Calendar.
Yep.
We didn't get to talk about the Rift Distillery, but get over to the Rift Distillery at the Party Source. We'll have you back for that.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Amy, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
All right, Brian, back to you. Get your Google Calendar, Brian.
All right, Amy and Kelly, thank you, and thanks for joining us this morning for U.S. Bank Business Watch. We're back next Sunday and every Sunday morning at 6:30 right here on Local 12. If you sleep in, you can catch us at 10 o'clock in the morning on the CW. For more business news all week long, visit the Business Courier online, sign up for our daily emails, and you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Our address is CincinnatiBusinessCourier.com. For all of us here at Cincinnati and U.S. Bank Business Watch, I'm Brian Patrick. We hope you have a great Sunday and a good week.